Hello and welcome back to Fecata Fantasies. Thanks for watching again, and if you watched my last video, thank you so much for watching. I had a lot of fun making that video, and I had a lot of fun hearing people's stories that they shared with me afterwards. It wasn't something I was anticipating, but I got texts from people saying, oh my gosh, I just had a week of great poos. I didn't know who to tell about it because I didn't feel like I could start that conversation, and so they got to start the conversation with me. And then somebody else was telling me about a time that she had had like a really, not just a great poo, but a beautiful poo, like an aesthetically beautiful one, to the point where she wanted to show it to her kids. And she was calling her kids to come into the bathroom, and the kids were a bit confused. They're like, where are you? And she was like, I'm in the bathroom. And they're like, why are you calling us from the bathroom? She's like, you gotta take a look at this poo. It's just so beautiful. And they're like, ah, gross, Mom. We don't want to see your poo. She's like, no, come on, before I flush it, you gotta share the wonder. And then I do occasionally get a text from friends saying, I thought of you, I just had a great poo. And I'm like, man, that's just awesome. You enjoy those feces fairy blessings, and may they be with you always. So that was just a lot of fun. So thank you. And feel free to share your poo stories. And next time you see somebody, instead of saying, hey, how you doing? You can say, hey, how you pooing? Why not? You might learn something new about them. So moving right along, because today's going to be actually quite a different kind of video. Today's going to be more of an informational video, I suppose. Don't know if that's my strength, but I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to talk about my recording studio. So this video is really aimed at those who are interested in the audio book recording part of my journey. And I know there are at least a couple of you out there who had been thinking about maybe giving it a try yourselves. So this video is for you, to show you what I did. I'm not here as an authority because, first of all, I'm no expert, and I'm not really a detailed person, so everything I did I kind of just improvised. I'm not an actual working audiobook narrator yet, but I can tell you about where I am in my process and what I kind of put together. And actually, my studio is maybe beautiful isn't the first thing that should come to mind, because it should be more practical than beautiful, but I do think it's very beautiful, and it's actually really good. I think it's a really good place to start. So I'm going to show that to you. I'm going to take you on a tour. But first, I am going to talk to you a little bit about I'm going to give you some context. So I'm first going to talk to you a little bit about why a studio, why a home studio, and then what is really the purpose of a studio. And then I'm going to kind of show you or talk to you a little bit about what materials that I used in building my studio. And then I'm going to give you a tour of my studio. And then after that, if you're still interested, I'm going to storytell a little bit about the journey that brought me here, that brought me into the studio that you kind of, as you can see, I am in my studio, so I'm in a different space from last time. And I'll storytell a little bit, like starting last summer, the journey from then up until here, what brought me to having this space. So there we go. Let's start with context. Why a studio? Well, based on my limited knowledge, the industry, as many industries, has been changing a lot in recent years. So while in the past, if you were a voice actor or a voiceover artist, and if you got a gig, you would be invited into the studio, you would perform, and then you would leave, because there would be audio technicians there and sound engineers, and they would basically take your file and work with it to turn it into a product. So all you had to do was show up, do your magic, move on. That has changed, because as I know probably most, if not all of you know, a lot of us are now working from home more and more, not just because of COVID, but a lot of things have already been going through that transition. So now voiceover artists or narrators are expected more and more to not just be the performers, but also their own producers, which means that at home they create a space where they can record. They record, whatever it is they are recording, and then afterwards they have to do the sound editing, they have to do all that kind of work to then provide a completed or nearly completed product to whoever wants the file in the first place or in the end. So I'm not at all going to talk about editing today because that's something I'm still learning about. I'm just only going to talk to you about my space. Now, the most important parts or aspects of a sound booth is cutting down. I mean, the most important thing is cutting down on sound reverb, because if you just have clean, reflective, smooth surfaces, the sound is going to bounce off of that, and then it's going to bounce off of any other walls. It's just going to keep bouncing. So you don't necessarily hear it unless you pay close attention, but you've got sounds bouncing everywhere, and that is not good. You do not want that when you're speaking on your mic. It's just a no-go. So that's why it's really important to, as they say, treat the room, which is basically to cover reflective surfaces in whatever way you can. And then also, as much as is possible, you're also isolating your space from outside sounds, which in a home studio is probably impossible to do. You will always have sounds coming in from the street or maybe from the apartment, but as much as possible, you're kind of insulating it a little bit. So that is all I'm going to say about that. Now I'm going to get into the fun part, which is I'm going to show you, I'm going to do show and tell, and I'm going to show you the materials that I have used in the creation of my studio. I am going to begin with, because I think it's such an important place to start, I'm going to start with the nail and hammer. I think you just always need a nail and hammer anytime you want to try anything like this. So I'll show you where they came in handy. The next thing was I needed a carpet to cover the floor. So I don't think I've mentioned yet that actually my studio, I'm very lucky because I live alone in an apartment. And basically what I did was I took my bedroom and I converted it into my studio. So I don't have a bedroom anymore. I sleep in the other room, which is basically where I do everything except studio work and bathroom stuff. So this is my bedroom. There was not a carpet before. I sold the bed frame that I had, and I took that money and I bought myself a great big carpet to cover the floor. So carpet is important. The floor needs to be covered. The next thing was I needed to cover the walls somehow, and I actually only have 2 walls, so when I take you for the tour, you might get a better idea of that, but I actually have 2 walls, and then the rest is kind of open, so there's no wall between here and the bathroom, which is over there, and the entrance is over there, and that's basically just like, you know, I walk out that door into the other space. So I had these 2 walls that needed to be treated behind me. So curtains were my next most important material, because I found curtains were a great way to cover walls and also to hang. You will see that in a few moments when we go on tour. Curtains are also great because there are already like holes in them, so you can kind of like hook them on nails, for example, and you can hang them. Curtains are great. You will see I've been able to make great use of curtains. Then I did also have some fabrics. Like this fabric behind me is not a curtain, and it's such a beautiful fabric, and I needed to poke holes into it myself, and I was kind of thinking, how could I do that? And for that purpose, I got what are called grommels. I don't know if you know what a grommel is, but they're very cheap. So you've got this guy, and you've got this guy, and they, oh, no, that's not the right one. There's like a flat one, yeah. So you got this flat, you can't see that very well. You've got this flat guy, and then you've got this not so flat guy, and you kind of hammer them together. There are instructions that come when you buy the packet, and so I was able to put grommels into this fabric behind me so I could hang it on the wall. So then, and so we've got nails, hammer, curtains, carpet, grommels, and I make great use of clothespins. I find clothespins super useful, so I keep buying more and more because I keep finding other ways of using them. So I definitely use some clothespins. And then I didn't have a wall on this side, so I needed to find some way of constructing a wall. And what I ended up doing was using a futon. You will see that in a few minutes. It may not make much sense to you right now. And it certainly wasn't premeditated. It kind of was one of those lucky accidents, but it works really well. So there you go. I don't think there's anything else I have to do. Of course, the obvious thing is the mic, which is right here, but I'm not going to talk so much about equipment today. I would, however, like to give credit where credit is due, and this mic, which does not belong to me, is being lent to me by my friend Kat, so thank you so much, Kat. I will never stop thanking you for lending me this equipment that is helping me out so much. Great. So I think we're ready for our tour. What do you think? Yeah. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna meet you outside, and we'll start the tour from there. Okay, see you in a few moments. Okay, so we're back. We're outside the studio. Thank you for meeting me here. This is the curtain, so which you wouldn't have seen on the inside. This is, so basically, my bedroom was all of this. You can't see it so well. This is the outside view. So as you can see, those brown curtains came in so handy because otherwise I wouldn't have had a wall. And luckily, there was kind of place to hang. There was space to hang curtains. I didn't put that up. That was kind of already there, which was lucky for me. And these curtains I got from my neighbor because she was getting rid of stuff and she just happened to be getting rid of these curtains that worked perfectly. They're kind of a velvety thing, so on the inside, that provides a little bit of extra absorption for sound. It's not like this side of the fabric might have been not as absorbent, so it's just perfect. So that's wall number 1, which I was able to install because there was no wall on this side of my bedroom. I think this is the coolest part, which is the futon. So let's check out this futon. As you can see, I stood it up on end, which may not seem like a really safe thing to do, but I have to say it's pretty sturdy. Like if you try to push it, you have to push it really hard for it to fall over, and that hasn't come close to happening. Then I took another curtain, and this curtain belonged to another friend because she had some curtains hanging out in her dresser which weren't being used, and not only were, actually it's the same curtain as this one, it's just a different color, and I adore this color. So I was really excited when I saw that she had those curtains. What I did was I used the twine, so I showed you twine before, and let's see if I can show you. I used the twine to help kind of fix it onto the futon. Yeah, because since there are holes, these are actually grommels, by the way. It's just they were pre-inserted. But yeah, I used some twine to kind of affix the curtain to the futon, and then on the other side I put a blanket. I didn't mention blankets among my materials, but I have a blanket here which is also a beautiful color. I don't know if you can see it so well, but it's a lovely kind of maroon color, I guess you could say. Now, this amazing orange fabric, this fabric I did buy, it wasn't expensive. It was a friend of mine who insisted on taking me to thrift shops to help me get stuff to make this studio happen. And she spotted this fabric, and it was great because it was big, and it has kind of like a fluffy side, which is good for sound absorption. And I love the color orange, so it's just, I mean, it's just so cool. And I did have to put grommels in here, so I don't know if you'll be able to see up there any of the grommels there. I don't know. I don't know if that worked, but I did have to put the grommels up there so I could hook it up on the wall. There is a mattress behind here, and that is important, and I'll explain to you in a few moments why. The final wall is this is the same curtain, same color curtain as the one I fixed to the futon. This is another curtain that I had hanging out here, and there is actually another blanket behind here. I just kind of stuck some nails up there, and I was able to hang it all, so that wall is covered. So basically we could say this wall is treated, this wall behind me is treated, this wall over here is a treated wall that I improvised, and then I've got some cool curtains over there. Sorry for the light. Yes, also an important point. Clothespins. So I use clothespins to close this off, so they're just like, there's not open space for the sound to escape through. Great. Welcome to my studio. I think it's really beautiful. I have to say, I love the colors. I feel like I have the colors of a sunset in here, you know, the kind of blue and then the orange and the maroon, and then this is kind of like the flora. I think my studio is awesome. I hope you do too. Great. I think that's all I have to say about the studio. Let me think. Am I missing anything? If I am, if you have any questions, then please just write a comment, write a question, and I can always talk about other things in another video or answer any questions you have. But the point of this is really to show you what I did, because at the end of the day, creating your own home studio is a creative thing. I watched a bunch of YouTube videos. I'd been kind of wondering for months, you know, how could I pull this off? And at the end of the day, you kind of just work with what you have. You work with the money you have, you work with the space you have, you work with the materials you have, you find out what you can grab from your friends, and then you see what you can do with it. And none of what you see here was premeditated. It was, I had something entirely different in mind when I started putting this together, and certainly the futon was meant to be something I would sleep on. But then here we are, lucky mistake error that really worked out very well, I think. So I'm going to stop the tour right there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this back up as it was before, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about why or how I decided to start this journey towards becoming an audiobook narrator, and especially some of the cool coincidences that happened last summer up until now, really. The synchronicities or the coincidences just keep streaming on in. So yeah, I'll see you in a moment. Okay, so we're back. As I said, I'm going to storytell a little bit now about what has brought me to this moment where I have turned my bedroom into a recording space. And I'm actually going to go back to 2017 because that's the first time I had really considered the idea of trying to create a recording space in my apartment. But at the time, I really just didn't see how it could be possible. I didn't have a lot of extra energy to do anything about it, but I wanted to share a cool story that at the end of 2017, I had gone to New York for a few months, and on the train ride back to Montreal, where I am now, I had sitting next to me this young guy, and we started talking, and you know, we kind of spent the ride sharing things with each other. You know, he was sharing with me some video games that he had been playing, and one of the things I shared with him was, and I'll show you, I have I call them animal cards, and basically they're kind of like tarot cards, but not. You know, you pick a card or you create a spread and you get some readings, so they're all different animals. You can see this is a beautiful dolphin one. And so I had these with me because they go with me everywhere. And at some point I showed them to him and I said, "Do you want me to read you a card?" He was like, "Great." But there wasn't really much space where we were, so we went to the food wagon and we spread out the cards. He chose one, I was reading it to him. And after I read the reading that comes with the card, a man came up and he was like, "You should read audiobooks." And I was like, "I know, that's what I've got in mind." But fast forward, 2020, last year, is really the moment where I found that there was the time, space, and energy to actually really act upon it, and I felt that there was kind of a way forward. And it's funny because it's these animal cards, actually, that opened up that door again, because I was in a park with a friend. We were having a picnic, and I had brought these cards with me because I thought she might be interested in pulling a card and getting a reading, and so that's what we did. And after I read her reading, she was like, "You need to read audiobooks." And I was like, "Oh my God, tell me about it. It's like my dream job." And so that is really what launched this, if I can say it like that. I still wasn't, you know, when she first said that, it kind of had reignited the idea in my mind, but I wasn't really ready to take it fully seriously yet, because I had done some research and it just looked so impossible, you know, because it always depends on who you're comparing yourself to. If you're comparing to the best of the best, it's always going to seem out of reach. But then the same friend of mine, she had sent me this website of the young woman who had, you know, become an audiobook narrator. And the way she laid it out, I was like, that is doable. Like, that is something that I could start with. And if she's getting work, then I could probably too. You know, I don't have to be the best audiobook reader in the world to get work like this. So that gave me a little bit of extra motivation and a sense of possibility. And then it was just a few days later that I was playing ping pong with another friend, and I was telling her about, you know, I was thinking about this, it would be so cool, but, you know, of course I would need a mic, and that's really an important thing. And she's like, oh, I've got a mic. And I was like, oh. She was like, yeah, because she sings, and sometimes she records herself. She's like, I got a mic, and I haven't been using it. And I was like, oh my God. And she was like, you can borrow it if you want. I was like, oh my God. And basically that's what I did. That's yeah, thank you, Kat, who had lent me this beautiful piece of equipment. And, you know, from then on, it was like, okay, well, now I really have no excuse. Now I really have to buy the studio, and not buy, but build the studio, because I've got a mic I can use. So, yeah. I mean, how do you say no to a call like that? And I guess it was really over the fall of 2020 that I was bit by bit seeing, okay, how could the studio happen? I was imagining it over on the other side, which didn't fit so well with me. I had thought originally of keeping my bedroom a bedroom, but like making it like, oh, I could turn it into a studio, and then I pack the studio down and I sleep, and then, you know. And I tried that, but it really wasn't practical. It didn't work out well at all. And then I realized it just had to become a studio, and I just had to find a way to sleep, you know, on the other side. And I'll tell you, there were several times in this process where I was just like, Antoinette, you are just so crazy. Especially after I sold my bed, I was thinking, okay, Antoinette, you've officially just gone over the edge here. And I probably still am over the edge, and I guess that's okay. It's more exciting to live that way. Wouldn't you agree? There you go. The final part of the, you know, string of synchronicities, which was really spectacular, was at the end of 2020, myself and a friend, my friend with the beautifully covered curtains, she and I went to La Fontaine Park, and we were hanging out with Plateau Astro. That's Trevor. So if you're watching this, Trevor, here's a shout out to you. If you don't know Plateau Astro, look it up, because Trevor has been doing awesome work for the past 2 years, kind of tracking what goes on in the skies and helping people understand astronomy better and gain a better, like, a stronger relationship with it, which I think is so cool. He goes out with his telescope. You can look in through his telescope. And so my friend Sylvie and I went to check out what Trevor was doing on, I don't remember what day it was, but it was the day, or it was the best day that the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter could be sighted in Montreal at the end of December. We got to look through Trevor's telescope, see Jupiter, see the moons of Jupiter, and see the rings on Saturn. So cool. And it was on this day that Sylvie and I just happened to start conversation with a man, and at some point he said, wow, you've got a really beautiful voice. Do you do voiceover? And I said, well, I have got the studio for it. And it turned out that he had a lot of experience in that industry, and he was able to help me out. And he has been, here's to you, Jean-Benoit, if you're watching, a great support. He's been helping me understand some of the technical side of things so I can get some, as he says, wings in terms of post-production editing stuff. So I have been so incredibly lucky through this process, and I haven't had to invest a whole lot of money in it so far, which is huge. And yeah, so here we go. As I said last time, I have already sent out a couple of auditions, and the truth is that's a bit premature. I'm not really ready to be auditioning, because what I need to work on right now, and that will be the focus of the next 1 or 2 weeks, is creating samples. And I will talk more about samples in another video. So there you go. That's my storytelling for today. If you are intrigued by the animal cards, let me know, and I can read you or I could, you know, do a reading for one of my videos. Pick a card for whoever's watching and read you what the book says. And I think one of the next things I am going to do is I'm going to post a poem that I read, and that is recorded with this microphone. And so I'm hoping to post that in the next few days. Great. I just want to make sure there's nothing that I'm forgetting. think it's good. So I think I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for following the journey if you are. If you know anybody else who's interested in audiobook recording, share this video. Yeah, and if you are interested in the audiobook recording side of things and you want to have a bit more information than I'm capable of providing at this time, let me know and I will give you some really great references of other YouTube personalities who I find just do a great job of sharing useful information for people who want to go that route. So there you go. I'm going to leave it there for today. So have a wonderful weekend, and I can't wait to post something again soon. I won't wait 2 weeks for the next one, I promise. Great. Cheerio!